Welcome back, Gems, to another wonderful episode of the Grateful Gem podcast. I am your host, Jasmine Shannelle, and today we are talking about being left on red. What to do when you don't get an answer. Stick around because gems are definitely about to be dropped, so get ready. I need everyone listening to this podcast episode to follow us on Instagram at The Grateful Gem Pod and also follow me at Jasmine Shannelle. Don't worry, I spelled everything out and left it in the notes below. Take a look. See you there. Now let's get into this episode. What's going on, Gems? I'm so happy that you've tuned into this episode. I want to do this episode to remind you that if you are praying about something and you haven't got an answer, that there's so many things that you can be looking for or looking at to figure out, what's actually going on, because we know that when God isn't doing anything, he's actually doing a lot. So I want to encourage you guys that whenever you're in a moment where you can't hear or you don't know exactly what you heard, that you continue to do what it is that you do when you're searching for answers. You continue to ask questions, but remember to never question God. So make sure if you are praying and that if you are questioning God, that you change those questions from questioning God to asking questions, because we know that God allows us to ask questions, but we are never to question what it is that God is doing. And I find it funny because sometimes when I pray, I sit here and I'm like, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. And then another time I'm like, okay, God, what is it that you're doing? So I went from, trusting God, knowing that he's doing something, to now I'm in a phase where, okay, God, I know you're doing something, but I can't see it, or I don't fully understand what it is that you're doing. So now I'm going to question, like, okay, God, what are you doing? Like, I need you to confirm what it is. Drop down a drop of rain if, if you're doing something. And so I think that in so many instances, we have to look back over what it is that we're praying for. We have to look back over what it is that we're asking God to do and how we're praying, because we have to remember that God hears all. He hears all, sees all, does all. He can hear and see everything. So anything that you say does not go unheard by God. But sometimes he doesn't answer us and he leaves us on red. And let me just start there. So the way that I thought about this episode, I actually was having a conversation with my best friend, and I was telling him that, in this season, I've been finding myself praying about a lot of situations and just asking God to, just really show me what it is that he's showing me, because I went from being in a season where I felt like I knew everything that God was saying to now I'm honestly in a season where I don't know what God is doing at all. I don't understand the things that was revealed to me earlier, if they were honestly revealed, because I feel like I'm clueless right now, so I've been in a season where I've just been praying and asking God, like, God, please, what do you want me to do? Please, what are you doing? Like, God, please just show me something. Give me a sign that I am on the right track. And I felt like God had read the message or heard the message, rather. You know how someone texts you and they say something and you really, or either you're like, man, I know, like with me, whenever someone texts me and it's just like I'm upset, or it's a situation where I can't really say what it is that I want to say without hurting that person's feelings, because sometimes when I get upset, I can really just come off really blunt. I'm blunt, honestly, in real life. I'm blunt regardless, but when I get upset, I'm like 100% blunt. I don't tailor my feelings to how you feel. I'm going to say what I feel. So sometimes I just don't respond, and I don't have on my red receipt so that you can see when I read a message. So it'll say delivered. Even though I read it, you won't know I read it. You will be under the impression that I haven't read the message, even though I have. And so I was telling him, I said, that's how I feel. I feel like I've been praying and I've been trusting and I've been waiting, and I feel like God is hearing my prayers. I feel like he's working. I know he's working, because we know that when God is not doing anything, he's doing everything. And it's more so of when we feel as though God is not doing anything, he's doing everything, because we know that God is never not doing anything. In the moments where he's quiet, or he seems quiet, because sometimes he can very well be speaking to us, but sometimes we overlook the things that we see in front of us and think that it's not what it is. So we sometimes overlook what it is that God is saying to us. The signs that we ask for, we don't take those as signs. We take it as the total opposite. I know I'm good at that. And sometimes God says, I'm going to show you rather than tell you. So if you feel like you're in a season where God is not responding to you, or God has heard your message, but he's left you on red and he hasn't gotten back to you, I just want to give you a few ways to start looking at this situation, and also a few ways maybe that you could change your prayer so that you're praying fervently and you're getting answers. Because I don't think there's not a right or wrong way to pray, but it is a right and a wrong way to convey what it is that you're saying. Because like I said, you can ask questions, but you can't question God. So you can say, God, what is it that you would have me do? And you can't turn around and say, well, God, I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing? Because God is going to reveal what he's doing, later. But he's not going to answer like, oh, I'm teaching you how to be responsible, or I'm showing you, and in some instances, God will very well say those things like, this is to discipline you, but it doesn't come off right then in that moment as a response, as this is a lesson to teach you responsibility. This is whatever. It's always an action. Something happens and then you get that revelation of God was teaching me how to be responsible, or God is teaching me the power of patience, or God is showing me how to be more of a stewarder. And it's not like God actually coming down and saying that to you or revealing that to you right then in that moment. It's always an action put behind a prayer. There's always something that's going on that's going to teach you a lesson. And we also but we often, after that moment, realize what it is that God is doing. And I know that I can't be the only one that has gone through a season where God has revealed so much and you try to unpack everything that God is telling you because there's something there. But you get to a very point where you feel like you honestly know what it is that God is saying, and it comes out later that you didn't know anything. To be honest, that's the way I feel. And you may hear it in my voice that I'm just honestly overwhelmed. I'm honestly confused. I'm honestly in a point where I don't know what God is doing. And I know we say that a lot, and we understand that God is doing something. But I can honestly say that I am in a phase where I honestly don't know what God is doing at all. I had to come back and look at a lot of things that I was praying for. I had to come back and look at a lot of things that I'm trying to do in my life. I'm honestly questioning everything right now. And I'm like, God, what did I do? And I don't know if that's just a moment of me just being impatient, because I have a hard time with being patient, and God deals with me on different ways with being patient and not being able to make hasty moves. If you are friends with me on Facebook, you saw that I posted today that in life I learned it's better to think a situation out or think rational before it's easier, or before it's a good idea to be hasty. And the reason I said that is because I had a situation presented itself and I was ready to, be that person. I'm a hasty person. I act out of haste, and that's just me. And I also think it's because I act out of emotions and I act out of feelings, and that has always been something that I have struggled with. Even in, I remember when I used to work back in 2015 when I worked at Nukes, that was the biggest thing, because I had a general manager who was younger than me, and I feel like he should be able to relate to a lot of things that were going on, and he just didn't get it. And it's like, okay, I get it, but I don't, okay, whatever. And so, I was at a point where it was like, rah, 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 I was popping off in the mouth, okay, whatever. And that's just always been me. Like, I'm going to speak my mind regardless, but I feel like sometimes I go to the extremes and then I have to reel myself back in. And after that, I honestly can say sometimes I honestly feel like I made a fool of myself. Like, yeah, I cussed you out. Yeah, I went off on you. Yeah, I got my point across. But now I feel like I did all that for nothing, because it was never that serious in the first place. And I learned that my auntie used to tell me all the time, like, Jasmine, you cannot continue to act out of your feelings. You cannot continue to act out of emotion. You have to take a step back and calm down. You have to calm down. And not only do you have to calm down, but she was like, you have to start thinking rational. She was like, I don't know what it is about you, but sometimes you just literally go to the deep end. She was like, you think the worst thought first, and then you go to the best possible obstacle. And she was like, maybe you can turn that around and start thinking better thoughts, and then think about, okay, it could possibly the A, B, C, D. And so I used to go off with her like, rah, 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 like, girl, what are you saying? Like, girl, I do not act off emotion. So you telling me what I feel ain't true? You telling me and she was like, it doesn't matter about what you feel. She said, because at the end of the day, right is right, wrong is wrong. She was like, so two wrongs don't make a right. So if he's wrong and you're wrong, who's right? She was like, so sometimes you have to put yourself in this instance where you're right, and sometimes that doesn't feel good. She was like, but you can't act on how you feel, because sometimes in acting out of how you feel, it conveys off of the wrong signal, and sometimes you can put yourself in detrimental situations by being hasty and acting so quickly off of a hasty feeling. And I really think that's important, because I'm now at a point where I'm starting to try to slow down. I feel like not only because it's just getting overwhelming. I get tired of going off on people. I get tired of, just always trying to prove my point. I feel like I've been a person of defense all my life. I've always had to defend myself. So now it's like, I feel as though I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to explain to you what I'm doing. I don't have to explain to you why I'm doing these things. So now I'm just like, okay, whatever. But when a situation happens and I get in my feelings, now that's a different story. I get upset. And the moment I get upset or I start overthinking, I start going back to that hasty place. And I currently, to be honest, am working through that right now as I'm talking to you guys, because I had a situation happen and I really want to act the way I normally act. But this kept coming over me like, Jasmine, calm down. Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't do that. At the end of the day, when things happen, they'll unfold, and you may or may not be right. And you have to be willing to just take whether you're wrong or right and be okay with either one of those choices. And so I sat here and I'm like, God, what is it that I've done? Sometimes I feel like, what is it that I've done to deserve to not be heard? And I know that that's not true, because I know that God hears us. God is listening. He's listening to me right now. He hears all. He sees all. And for me to feel as though I'm not being heard, it's just a bad feeling, and that's just it's a hard pill to swallow, to even sit here and be able to say out loud, like, God, I feel like you're leaving me. God, I feel like you've left me. You're not in the room. You don't hear me, even though I know you hear all, see all. So it's kind of acting out of contradicting experiences. And we know that, again, God hears all, he sees all. So we know that in a moment where we feel like he's not answering us, he's very well answering us. We just may have to be patient. Excuse me. We may have to just be quiet. We may have to sit still. I think that with the being quiet and sitting still, I know recently I had a friend ask me that. We were right when I was going through that experience, when God was showing me the experience of the power of the number one. If you have not heard that episode, please go back and check that out. I think it will really, really be beneficial to you. If you're in a season where you just are stagnant or you are in neutral, just cruising, I think that is something that will really, really give you chills. It really, it was powerful to me. And I was just like, wow, this is a lot, God. I didn't want to have to experience this, but I think that God takes us through experiences so that we fully understand what it is that is being shown to us. So experiences, it helps the overall goal of what it is that God is doing. So don't ever count out having an experience. Having one experience is something that is just amazing, because that one experience can change your life. And I also have an episode called Have One More Experience. If you haven't heard that, please go back and listen to it. I'll link those down. The power of one and have one more experience. I will put that in the episode notes for you guys who have not heard it, because those two messages are something that you may want to hear, and they will definitely help you through whatever you're going through. I don't know personally what you're going through, but I know that we all struggle with a lot of things day in and day out. So I want to encourage you that you're not alone in this journey. Like I said, I'm battling through this very topic at this very moment. So I think it's a great thing for me to be sitting here honestly recording this, because this is actually real feelings. This is how I'm currently feeling. Not like currently 10 minutes ago, but currently as I'm talking to you guys. And I wanted to make sure that for anyone else out there who was feeling this same way, like, God, you've left me on red. You've heard my messages. You've heard, not my messages, but you heard my prayers. You hear me crying out, and I can't hear you. I don't see you. I don't know what you're doing. And it may very well be that you heard God, but you don't really understand what it is and why God is saying the things that he says. So I definitely think that it's just important to tune in. And on the note of being still and being quiet, again, I had a friend that reached out to me, my accountability partner. We were having a conversation about that experience that I had. And she was like, have you ever just sat and listened to God? And I was like, yeah, I do that all the time. I was like, that really isn't a way how me and God communicate, but when I'm just trying to sit in obedience and show God that I'm actually listening and I'm actually waiting for a word from him, then I do that. And it reminded me of an experience I had, because I was honestly in a situation where I was waiting on a miracle, and God did not show me that miracle or give me that miracle that I was praying for. And back in 2014, I experienced going through a eviction. That year was a hard year for me. I feel like that is really where I honestly just hit rock bottom. I had just lost my dad in 2012. Everything from there on just went down. I failed college. I was still going to school, but I wasn't focusing. So my grades went from A's and B's to C's, D's, and F's. So I ended up going back to school that next semester, having to take all those classes again, and still failed. I honestly flunked out of college. And I got so bad to where I couldn't even go back to school for another trimester, because I didn't qualify for financial aid because my grades were so bad. And I really didn't understand why my grades were so bad, because I was going to school, I was showing up. And I remember I had, the second time I went to redo my courses, I had an English teacher, Miss Cherry. And this lady she was amazing. She helped me out so much. I ended up in a course of like a C, which isn't my typical grade, but it was great for me because I was going to have an F. And so she gave me an assignment to write an essay. And I am a good writer, you guys. When it comes to writing, I go to another place. I always have. And that's why I'm so big on journaling. Because I'm very vivid, I'm very detailed. I feel the words that are on a paper when you're writing, it's the way I feel it's being put into that. And when I read it again, and when somebody else reads it, they experience that same thing. And so this person was a person who understood that. And we had a conference one day, and she said, "What's going on?" She was like, "I know I've read your work." She was like, "This is not your work." And to be honest, the paper that I wrote was trash. I'm gonna be honest with you. I threw it together just so I could have something to turn in, because I didn't want her to think that I was just like, not taking it serious, because I did take it serious. I was so weak. I didn't have strength. I had gone through literally a lot, and I was just trying to continue to go through, trying to make way and make ends meet, trying to just find myself in a world where I feel so lost, and through all of that, she saw through that, and she was like, Jasmine, I've read some of the things that you've written. She was like, even when it comes to your statement, to your missions, to your body paragraphs, to just the details and the supporting details that you put in a paper, she was like, I've read good work from you. What is this? And I was like, what do you mean? I don't understand. And so she broke it down, and she read the paper back to me, and she was like, what is this? And I was like, I don't know. And so she gave me another chance to rewrite the paper, and I rewrote the paper, and I actually sat down, wrote it out, got my topics, turned it in the next day or the next class. And she was like, this is what I'm used to from you. And she said, I know that you have the ability to produce so much when it comes to your writing. When it comes to you putting it on paper, you got it. So wherever it is that you're letting allow you to take that from you, I need you to stop. And so I was like, wow. That for me was just like a push of joy. And it was just that moment, having someone to actually see through a broken person, having someone to sit through and see me, the real me. And so I think like a couple of weeks later, I was experienced going through, at the time I was still struggling, trying to catch up my rent, paying like literally my whole check's going to rent, and it just adding up every day because I'm still trying to pay it off and get it caught up, regretting signing my lease over, still going to school, still working full time, just doing it all. And so I remember sitting in a room one day because one of my older friends, she asked me the same question. She says, have you ever sat and just waited for God? Have you ever sat and just listened to him and waited for him? And she said, I don't want you to do anything until you actually hear from God. And so she honestly, to be real with you guys, she had given me the money to get out of my eviction, and I was so grateful for that. But I didn't want to spend the money on the eviction if that's not what God would have me do. So what I did was, I went to church. Let me back up. So I did end up sitting in my living room. I remember sitting on my leather sofa set, just listening, crying out, literally boohoo crying, seeking God, waiting for God, worshiping. I sat there for hours, and to be honest with you guys, I didn't hear anything. God did not reveal anything to me. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, I don't get it. I don't understand. And so, I was just like, I'm never doing this again. This is stupid. God doesn't hear me. I don't know what's going on. I really can't figure it out. And so, I was just ecstatic. You guys. And again, I tried to do it again the next day. It still didn't work. I was just like, okay, I give up. I was still praying. I was still waiting on a miracle, still believing, still hoping that God would turn it around. And so my friend, again, she ended up giving me the money to pay off my eviction. And so I was like, okay, I'm so grateful. I'm thankful. And so I really didn't want to spend the money on the eviction if that wasn't what God would have me do. So I went to church that Sunday. I hadn't been to church in a while. And so I went to church that Sunday. I hadn't tithed or anything. And so that specific day, they were having like a Heart of the House giving that we do every year. And so it was Heart of the House time. And so they said to put, let God resonate on your spirit what to put in the offering. And so I said, okay, I prayed, I heard God. And so I donated, I tithe, gave my Heart of the House giving. And, I said, God, what would you have me do? Would you have me use this for my eviction, or would you have me just, give this back? And so, I felt like in my spirit, he said, give it back. But I felt like I spoke louder than him, and I heard, believe, have faith. So I was believing and having faith that, okay, this money was sent to me. Let me go ahead and pay it off. And I ended up going to my apartment office that day with all the money, saying that, hey, I have the money to pay off the eviction. We can stop it. I can still keep my apartment. And the lady was like, oh, we can't stop it. We already sent it to the court, and you have to pay lawyer fees now. So it went from being like $1,400 to being like $3,000. And at the time, I only had like $1,600. And so I was like, what? Like, what are you saying? And so I was really ecstatic. I cried all the way to my apartment, and I was like, I'm going to lose everything I've worked so hard for. I had just got rid of my car because it had too many issues. I was like, I'm not paying on this anymore. So I ended up giving that back. And now I was getting ready to lose my apartment. I had just lost my job, and I was just like, I don't get it. Why am I going through this? God, I don't hear you. I thought you said believe. I thought you said faith. And here I am believing. Here I am having faith. And the outcome that, sorry you guys, I don't know what's going on. But the outcome that I thought, or what I thought I heard you say, is not what is actually happening in reality. And so it was that very moment that God said, I told you to believe in me. I told you to trust in me. And I told you to not worry. And at that moment, I said, okay, okay, I'm going to trust you. And so I called my friend and I told her, I was like, hey, I tried to pay the rent off and it's too late. And I said, I'm going to keep praying and da-da-da. And so she was like, okay, just let me know, whatever you decide, I agree. She was like, but if you're not going to use it, then, just send it back. And da-da-da. And I said, okay. And so like the next day or so, I ended up just giving it back to her. I think I spent like $200. I put $100 in tithes, and then I spent $100 on getting a hotel room because I just needed to clear my head. And I had already like left my apartment. I was staying with family, and it was just hectic, and I just needed some time. And so I gave her the rest of the money, and I told her, I said, thank you, because you didn't have to do that for me. You didn't have to make that sacrifice for me, but you did, and I really appreciate it. But God has other plans. And so I just want to remind you guys that no matter what your past looks like, no matter how hard you're fighting a fight, and you're believing that a miracle will happen, because it will. The miracle may not be what it is that you see, or what it is, or the way that you see things playing out, but I guarantee you there's a miracle waiting for you after this storm, through this storm, honestly, not even after, but while you're in the depths of this process, there is a blessing on the other side with your name on it. Are you loving this episode? Great. Don't forget to leave your feedback by rating and leaving a review on Apple iTunes. Also, don't forget to subscribe anywhere, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And make sure that you follow us on Instagram to keep up in the know of what's going on with the podcast. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So I don't want you to get discouraged, thinking that, God can never do this for me. I know that, God has blessed other people, but he can't do it for me. And that's not true at all. God will do it for you, but God will not do it the way that you see him doing it. I'm also in a season where I'm understanding this. I went to through a process where, like I said, I felt like I was hearing God clear. I felt like his instructions were dead on, and I was hitting every nail on the head. Like I was just checking them all. Like, boom, girl, you got this. Boom, girl, you got this. Boom, girl, you learned that. Boom, girl. And now I'm at a point where I'm going back over those same check marks and marking X's over them. Like, I'm just at a point where, God, I'm confused. God, did you hear me? God, are you answering me? And I think that that just comes with us. We're human, so we need answers, and we want to know that God hears us, and we immediately want God to respond. And sometimes we're honestly in a rush, waiting for a response or trying to make a decision, and we want God to be in a rush, but God does not rush. Everything that happens at his pace. It happens at the right moment, at the right time. And we have to know that. And I want you guys to just have faith in your prayers. Pray fervently and just ask God what it is that he wants you to know with what's going on. What it is that he's trying to show you through what's being revealed. Because sometimes we often get in a prayer and we pray the wrong things, or we pray out of having hasty feelings, and God will respond to you, but it won't give you the answers that you need because we're not praying the right things, and I'm just at a point where you may ask yourself, well, what does that really look like? I've been sitting here praying and I don't know what that looks like. I've been I feel like I've been asking all the right questions. I feel like I've been doing all the right things, and I still feel like God is not answering me. I still feel like he's not showing me what it is that he said. I still feel like everything that I heard previously is just a bunch of mess. I didn't hear that. And I think that in that moment you have to take yourself to scripture. Find a scripture and meditate on it. When I say meditate, I just mean resonate on it. Pray about it. Talk to God through that scripture that's going to help you find God. And when you get there, when you get to encounter and experience with God, you pour your heart out. It doesn't have to be the right words. Doesn't have to be the right things, but you say what it is that is on your heart. When you come to God in genuinity, being genuine, God honors that. God hears us, and He knows the desires of our heart. So even if you're in a moment where you don't know what else to do, you have to worship. Remember to just ask for guidance, but come genuine. I've noticed that a lot of times when I pray, and I pray out of my feelings, or I pray out of hurt, or I pray out of my past, or I pray out of just hastiness, God doesn't answer those prayers. But when I take a moment, step back, and actually sit down and fervently pray, and I express what I'm honestly feeling, and I express why it is I prayed what I previously prayed, God shows me, and He speaks to me, and He gives me a word. And from that word, I take it and I move forward. And it's hard, it's so hard to be able to fully understand what it is that God is doing, because our ways are not God's ways. And you will never be able to line up your plans with God's plans, because His plans far outsees ours from what we can imagine, think, or see. And so we have to know that if we're doing something in our own strength and it doesn't line up to what God says, then it's not going to make sense, because the things that we're doing is not even on the same level as what God is doing. And I feel like for myself, like I told you guys, I decided to, live the God first life. And to be honest with you guys, to keep it 100, everything that I've been fasting for, everything that I've been praying about, I'm honestly, maybe I interpreted those signs wrong. Maybe what I heard wasn't what I heard. And that still to me doesn't make sense, because it wasn't just about what I heard, but it was about what actually happened in real life, about what I actually experienced. And so it's like, okay, if none of that made sense, if none of this is what you're saying, why would these other actual events happen in real time? And I think that's the point where I'm flustered, because it's like, okay, God, I thought I was, hearing you. I thought I heard you say, or you revealed to me this and that. And so it's like, now I'm back at square one. And I remember having this conversation with my accountability partner, and we were talking about it. And she was like, I told her, I said, I feel like this is a puzzle. There's a 100-piece puzzle that I'm putting together. And at that moment, I told her, I said, I feel like I'm 2 pieces into the puzzle. So that leaves me with 98 pieces to put together. So now I'm back at the drawing board, and I have to start over. You ever had to put a puzzle together and you try to fit the wrong piece in there, and then you're like halfway through it, and then you start looking at it, and it's like, wait a minute, none of this makes sense. Like, it fits, but it doesn't make sense. So you have to take more than half of that puzzle apart. That's where me personally, I am currently. I told you guys, with my last relationship, I decided to go ahead and let that go, because I felt like that's what God was telling me. And for some reason, within these last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks, I've been feeling like, did what I hear. At first, when I first made that decision, I was honestly feeling like, okay, did I make the right decision? And things were happening. I was like, okay, I made the right decision. And so now I'm at a point where I'm not saying did I make the right decision, but I'm asking, is what I heard from God actually what God said? And I feel like I'm at a point where with that, it was just like God was telling me, because we were at a point where we were trying to just get rid of the past, like, oh, just start over, start brand new. And I'm now in a point where I keep having a mindset where it's like you can't get rid of the past, because your past is what endures your present, and it enhances your future. So when you're able to walk down a path of the unknown, because a relationship is unknown, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what bumps and rolls and ups and turns you're going to make in a relationship. So for some reason, I just keep hearing this, and I'm like, what is this? Like, what? That ain't what you said. Like, and that's honestly how I feel. I'm like, what? God, what? Like, man, that's how I feel. And like I said, I've been feeling like this for like the last couple of weeks. And I just feel like, God's like, you guys have the foundation. You have what it takes, but you're going about it the wrong way. And I'm just like, what? So you mean to tell me when I did that one fast or that 3-day fast or that 7-day fast, I didn't hear any of that stuff? And so he's like, no, I said those things, but when you interpret it, the last thing I said, that's not what I meant. And like I told you guys, we both did a fast and God didn't reveal anything to either one of us. And so we both took that as, God telling us, hey, I've already answered you guys, move apart. And that's what we did. We separated. And so now I'm in a point where I just keep hearing the same thing, or I keep thinking it. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Because I don't get it. And I keep hearing, you're trying to get rid of the past, but you have to endure that. You have to live every day embracing that, because it got you to where you are currently. And you don't have to erase the past. You don't have to do a clean slate, but rather go about it in the same presence that you have. Go about it a different way. Stop trying to change the past and change your present. Do it a different way. So do it whatever way you're doing it, it's not working. So do it another way. And so I'm just like, what? Like, what are you saying? And so I'm like, okay, I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know. I've been praying about that, but I don't know. And I'm just at a point where it's just like, okay, I don't know. And not even only with that, but when it comes to, the reaching out and helping a friend, that whole thing, it was like, I thought I got revelation on that. And then now I'm just like, okay, well, God, I don't know what else you want me to do. I've done everything you told me, or I've done everything I thought you told me to do. And so now I'm like, okay, well, what would you have me do? And so I'm at a point where I'm just like flustered and I'm hasty, because my feelings are all over the place. I'm emotional about it, because it's just like, I'm not emotional about those events, but I'm emotional about the part where I feel like I may have misheard God. And that's a hard thing, because you think that you're walking down the path that God led for you, and then to come back and look at it, it's like, he's on the path. He led you down a path, but you turned left when you were supposed to go right, and you turned right when you were supposed to go left. So now you're on a path that wasn't even supposed to be, because you were supposed to make 2 different turns. And don't get me wrong, God will make the path straight if you misheard, but it's in that moment it gets frustrating. So I can definitely agree and understand where you are, because at the end of the day, you try to make the decisions based off of what it is that's being revealed, what it is that you think that God is telling you. And like I tell you guys all the time, take whatever it is that God is telling you and take it back to God. And that's what I did. I journaled, I prayed, I fast, I saw, and I said, okay, cool. This is what I'm going to do. I'm moving forward. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, okay, I heard you, God, but what is it that I heard? And is that what you said? And I don't know, like I said, for some reason that's been resonating with me for a while, and I've been trying to just like ignore it. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what the heck this is. Now I feel like I'm literally back to the drawing board, and I'm back at square one. And so I'm just at a place where I feel like God's left me on red. Like, I'm praying to you, I'm asking you, and I feel like those prayers are going unheard, which I know is not true. I know that God is hearing me. I know that he's answering me, and he's working in the backseat on my behalf. But it gets hard when you're waiting on something to be shown to you and nothing is revealed. And so I want to encourage you guys, for whatever it is that you're waiting for God to reveal, that he's going to show up. He's not going to show up the way that you expect him to show up, but he's definitely there. He's there now. He's telling you what it is, or showing you through so many things. You just have to pay attention. And sometimes he's not showing us at all. He's just actually working on our behalf. So you have to figure out and differentiate what it is that God is actually doing for your specific situation, because the way that God speaks to me is not the way that he's going to speak to you. So don't tailor it to 100% what I'm telling you. I'm just here to encourage you that if you're praying and you don't hear God, or he hasn't answered your prayers, to not fret, because he has very well heard you. He's very well moving on your behalf right now. And the very thing that you thought was going to break you is the very thing that is actually going to make you into what it is that you're supposed to be, or push you, rather. It's going to push you into the season or the purpose that you're supposed to be in. The very thing that you thought was going to move you from going to that place is actually going to put you right where you're supposed to be. And I just want to encourage you that whatever you're going through, do not give up. Do not stop praying. Do not stop seeking, because when that very moment is when we tend to lose faith day by day by day. And when that opportunity presents itself, you're in a position where it's like, why did I ever doubt God in the first place? And I've been through that. I've gone through stuff and I'm stressed about it. And God is revealing to me, I'm not paying attention. And then it happens. It blows my mind. And then I sit here and I'm boo-hoo crying because, again, I've doubted God. And it happens. We're human. God knows that. But don't be afraid to know and talk to God about the way you feel, because it comes with a relationship. It's not about religion. It's not about reading the Bible and going to church every Sunday. It's about a relationship. If you can't come to God and be the authentic you have to get there, because God wants your heart. He doesn't want who you pretend to be, and you have to know that. And sometimes we're praying and we're not praying as God knows we can pray. God knows what we're capable of. Don't be afraid to show God your true colors. Some people on this earth know the real you more than you reveal the real you to God, because God knows the real you. But you may just be afraid of really going there, And I think that it's the point where you don't have to be afraid. Just trust God, and trust what it is that you're feeling, and tell God how it is that you're feeling. If you're frustrated, talk to him. Say, hey, today's not a good day for me, God. I'm back where I started. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling like I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling like I can't make it. I'm feeling like I cannot continue to walk down the path that you've paid for me. God, I feel like I'm walking in a calling that I'm unqualified for. I feel like you're listening and you're not answering me, but I know that's not true. So I feel like now I'm acting out of feeling. Whatever it is that you're feeling, be real. Yeah, I'm telling you, just be authentic, be real, and tell God what it is that you're feeling. Because not only in that instance will you be revealing what it is that you feel, and God gets to have that relationship with you, but you also have a relationship and an experience with yourself, because you're being real with yourself. And sometimes in prayer, you get so comfortable that you just start talking out and speaking out things that you didn't even know you felt. You go to talk. I've been in so many situations where I've prayed and I say stuff when I get real in prayer, and I start crying. I'm like, girl, I didn't know you felt like that. You really start feeling, and it helps you heal. It helps you get through whatever it is that you're going through, because now you can stop fronting with yourself and be real. And when you sit there and you listen to what it is that you actually said, it's like, dang, I really feel that way. So I encourage you to be encouraged. Seek God at all times. Be authentic and don't give up, because even when God is not doing anything, He is doing everything, and everything for you on your behalf. So please do not give up. Please don't let the enemy win. Don't let your doubt win. Don't let your fear win. Don't let you get in your way, because sometimes that's our biggest problem. We stand in front of ourselves and we take ourselves down a different path when God has already made our path straight. And don't ever think that you've gone too far and done too much that God is not able to reel you back in, because He's a God of all. He can do more than you can think, see, or imagine, or even ask. So trust Him. Trust Him. Trust what it is that His word says about you. Trust what it is that He says about your relationship with Him. Trust what it is that He says about you when you come to Him. Seek the kingdom. Seek Him in all that you do. And so I pray that this message encourages you today, because it's definitely encouraging me, because like I said, this isn't something that I was going through last week or yesterday. This is something that I'm going through right now in this very moment that I'm speaking to you. So I'm walking with you through this journey. I'm walking with you, and I'm going to be praying this same prayer. And as a matter of fact, I want to just say a prayer for you. If you can't get the words out, allow me to help you, because the power of one, all it takes is one person. So I'm going to set up a prayer on your behalf. So let's go ahead and do that. If you're uncomfortable, then you don't have to do it, but I'm going to go ahead and help you, because there could be very well something that you're trying to get through and you may not even know it. So Father God, I come to you today, Lord, asking you and thanking you for everything that you've done for us. God, asking you to reveal the things that are in our hearts and that are in our minds. God, to make sure that the things that we have for ourselves are lined up with the plans that you have for us. Even though we know that our plans are not your ways, we ask that you reveal your plans, your ways, so that we can walk down the path that you've created. And God, that no matter where we walk, that we aren't led astray. And when we are, you're there to capture us. Lord, we ask that you forgive us for the things that we've done in our own strength, for the times that we've doubted, for the times that we've allowed fear to take over our mind, our thoughts, and our words. That God, walking down this path is no longer going to look like haste. That we walk in patience and we wait for your word. And that God, when we're unclear of what it is exactly you're telling us, that God, we continue to seek you through any and every obstacle. And that we no longer move until we have clarity on 100% and faith in what it is that you're saying. God, we love you. We trust you. And it's in your name I pray this prayer today. Amen. Whew, that felt awesome. I want to just say, keep going. Keep going. Whatever it is that you're doing, you want to stop, don't stop. Keep going. And I believe in you. I have faith. God's there with you. He's trusting that you trust him. And you just have to trust him. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that I was able to get through to a lot of you guys, because I can't be the only one going through this. I pray that you continue to seek God for yourself, and that you continue to have a godly counsel around you that can help you get that relationship with God. And again, it's not just about reading the Bible. It's not just about knowing the Bible, because you have people that know the Bible from start to finish, but they don't take the time out to have an actual relationship with God. Relationship matters. So get that relationship, because he wants it. You need it. So don't be afraid. I hope I was able to encourage you. I am definitely encouraged. I want to say thank you for tuning into this episode. I will see you guys on the next episode. Keep shining as the gems you are, because you are perfectly made, and God looks at you as a perfect made gem. Keep going. Don't give up. Bye.